Val has this report.
Anger and protest at AlJazeera on the Libyan border with Tunisia. More than a week after they have crossed the border fleeing the fighting in Libya, these African workers from Ghana are feeling desperate, and they say they've been let down by their country.
We want to go! We want to go! We need the help!
It's very clear these Ghanaians are not angry with the Tunisian government. They said they love the Tunisian government. They said they love Tunisia, but they are angry with their own government, they say, because it has not come to help them.
They also complain of what they think is discrimination against them in the camp.
Everywhere we go, Bangladesh. We don't know where to eat. When we join a queue, tabu, Bangladesh. No Ghana, no Nigeria. You don't understand. We don't understand the reason why we are black or what.
But local Tunisian workers and volunteers are denying the charge.
Guys, you are in home here. You are home right now here.
Yes.
So we're gonna help you to go back. We will help you to go back.
Ghanaian migrants have described some of the horrors they went through before getting out of Libya.
You see, they take my money. They not stick on my back. We want to go Ghana. We want to go Ghana government to come and take us from here.
One of their wounded still cannot walk.
No problem. Keep quiet.
Another is writhing from cramps and fever inside the tent. It's obvious that the situation of these African workers was hazardous. The rebels accused them of serving as mercenaries for the Libyan regime, and at the same time, they say they have been beaten and looted by Gaddafi's security forces. After all those hardships, they now have only one demand.
When are you taking us? When are you taking us back to Ghana?
Mohammed Val, AlJazeera, AlJazeera on the Libyan-Tunisian border.
In other news, Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai has rejected a U.S. apology for the mistaken killing of 9 Afghan boys in a NATO airstrike last week. It comes as hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Kabul on Sunday to demonstrate against U.S. military operations in the country. A statement from Karzai's office said the president had told General David Petraeus, he's the top commander of the coalition forces in Afghanistan, that civilian deaths in his country are no longer acceptable. U.S. Defense Secretary Robert Gates has arrived in Afghanistan on an unannounced visit. Gates' trip comes at the beginning of the U.S. withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan in July draws closer. Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai is due to announce a timetable for the gradual handover of security responsibility from NATO-led forces to Afghans. Truck drivers in Gaza are on an indefinite strike. They're protesting against Israel's permanent closure of the commercial Karni crossing in the north of the Strip. This leaves the Kerem Abu Salem crossing in the south as the only way for goods to get in and out of Gaza. Nicole Johnston has more from Rafah.
Here at Rafah, hundreds of Gaza's truck drivers are on strike. They've blocked the entrance to the Kerem Abu Salem crossing, and that means at the moment no supplies can get in and out of Gaza. Now they're striking because Israel has closed the Karni crossing, and the drivers are saying that they won't work until it reopens. Now, Karni used to be the main export and import point for Gaza, but when Hamas took over, Israel closed it, except for gravel and grain, and now Israel has shut it down completely.
Karni
is a well-prepared crossing for security and infrastructure. It's cheaper. It's closer to the city, to the factories, to the warehouses, and to the wholesalers. In addition, from the Israeli seaport to the crossing, it's only 35 to 40 kilometres. But Kerem Abu Salem is 3 times further than Karni, and its capacity is very limited. It's also more expensive.
Now, Israel says that it's closed the Karni crossing for security reasons and that it's expanding the capacity of the Kerem Abu Salem crossing. But for people in Gaza, that's not enough, and businessmen and drivers here, they don't believe Israel. They say that they had a perfectly good crossing in the first place that never should have been closed, and that this is in fact another attempt by Israel to tighten the siege. Nicole Johnston, AlJazeera, Rafah.
In France, an opinion poll in Le Parisien newspaper suggests that the leader of the far-right National Front Party could win the first round of next year's presidential election. Charlie Angela has more.
The face of France's far-right politics. Marine Le Pen replaced her father Jean-Marie as leader of the National Front Party just 2 months ago. France's next presidential election is approaching, and now a poll published in Paris's leading newspaper is making uneasy reading for President Nicolas Sarkozy. It suggests that if the French public were voting today, Le Pen would win the first round with 23% of the vote. That's 2% ahead of either Sarkozy or Socialist Party rival Martine Aubry. Despite the news, Le Pen says her party won't get complacent.
I see this poll as an indication. I don't see it as an established fact. I know there's a lot of work to be done for the National Front, a lot of work to present our project to the French. I hope we are seeing the start of an awakening for the French people, because it's very fashionable at the moment.
The fashion she's referring to is the rise of the far right in Europe. Last week, a similar survey in the UK revealed 48% would consider supporting an anti-immigration party, parties that already exist, with strong followings in Austria and the Netherlands. But the poll has sent shockwaves through French politics. Now, Sarkozy's rival, Dominique de Villepin, is being asked by his former spokeswoman not to challenge the president at the polls next May. She fears a split in the votes for the mainstream right could hand a victory to the National Front. Charlie Angela, Al Jazeera.
Well, after nearly 3 decades of space travel, the shuttle Discovery is getting ready for its final journey. Astronauts have sealed its hatches with the International Space Station as they prepare to undock. Discovery will fly a victory lap around the orbiting lab before heading back to Earth. The shuttle is scheduled to make its final touchdown on Wednesday. Now, before we go, a reminder that you can always keep up to date with all of the news on our website. To find that, go to aljazeera.net/English. It's been good having you with us. Stay with us for more news coming up.
What Gaddafi has done, he dismantled or destroyed the system in the country.
As chaos and violence sweep across Libya.
They're living through fear, they're living through a nightmare.
They're using ammunition, live ammunition.
Al Jazeera hears from those who have lived in fear of Gaddafi's regime.
We don't want him to leave. We want to arrest him. 42 years is too much.
Libya, a state of terror. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Rhythms of resistance.
A part of the struggle and popular resistance is art. Through my art, I resist. Resistance is my art, and my art is my war.
Musicians using music as a way to maintain their cultural identity.
I believe that when I sing to the world, I portray Palestine through my voice, my singing, and my songs.
Songs from the lost homeland. At this time on Al Jazeera.
It was a revolution which ended half a century of autocratic rule and inspired a wave of public protest that swept across the Arab world.
Internet, Facebook, Twitter, they were not the revolution.
In an exclusive 2-part documentary, Raghi Omar traces the roots and repercussions of this uprising and examines why 23 years of dictatorship